Welcome to Inconvenient Disparities, the podcast that brings uncomfortable truths about health and well-being gaps to light. We're diving into the stories, data, and voices that are too often ignored because closing the gap starts with facing it. And now, here's your host, Stephanie Monroe.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's program. I am so excited to have an opportunity to expose you all and to chat with one of my very good friends, Miss Loretta Vini. Loretta, for 40 years, was a person working in the security management. She has been through a lot of life. She is an amazing speaker, and people who have heard her say that she is inspiring, knowledgeable, charismatic, energetic, and I can say the best speaker ever. Loretta has been through life, and I'm going to talk with her today about some of that life and some of the lessons that she has learned. Please listen in. Hi, Loretta. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much. And I was saying, I really love your chair. It looks like something from Star Trek. I am a little bit of a geek and a nerd and a Star Trekkie, although I don't go to those festivals where people dress up. But I appreciate seeing it. It just does my heart good to see that.
I know, right? And it is really comfortable, meets kind of the lifestyle. So there you go.
Exactly. So let's just talk about it. Let's just jump in.
Okay.
Because I have known you for years now. Your mom had Alzheimer's disease. You lost your husband. Mm-hmm. You've experienced trauma. Mm-hmm. Yet, I would say you are the most hopeful person I've ever encountered. And maybe it's not in spite of the trauma. Maybe it's because of the trauma.
Yeah.
I want to hear you just talk about what you have been through and what learnings that you would share with people about how they can sort of embrace the life that they've been handed and how we're strong.
Yeah. I think the most important lesson, I learned from my mom was that, one of them, you can really do anything that you want to do, just kind of keep moving forward, kind of thing. And so I was just raised that way. So when something would, go wrong, whatever it was, I would, pivot and, go in the other direction, whatever direction that was. And some of the times I didn't have any kind of guidebook. You just kind of did it. So I try not to wallow in, any of these things that went wrong. And then you just kind of kept going. What's interesting, I think, about my, early adulthood part of my life was always thought, all the things that you kind of go through is preparing you for something else. Mm-hmm. So, right after I got married, I was married for about a year or so, and my husband, Tim, and my mom, they were so close and stuff. So we did all of these crazy things. And then like a year into that marriage, I got, really sick and I was misdiagnosed. That's a long story, but it required 13 years to kind of get well. And I had I was in the hospital probably 40 some times, and I had 21 operations. And as part of that, when you are in the hospital and you're relying on all these people to take care of you, to bring in the new IV and all this kind of stuff, and then show you how to work all the stuff when you go home. I had a catheter for about a year after operation number, 15 or so. And so they're showing you all these things. But in doing all that, you're asking yourself, what is the lesson? Why me? All that. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe you don't understand it right this minute, but you will. And so survived all that. And it's funny, because I always have empathy for other people too. So my husband did all this work caring for me and, all these years. So finally, like operation number 10, I was like, you know what, you can go, because I understand, for better, for worse, richer, for poorer, sickness and health. However, that's a lot to be, taking care of me and doing all that. And he was like, oh, I'm not going anywhere. I mean, we were just the best of friends and the best of everything. And so, when my mom got sick years later, probably 10 or so years later, after all that, I put everything I learned from my own, illness and rebounding into some sort of plan, for my mom. And one of the things I remember about, my mom visiting me in the hospital and all that, because she never visited. She didn't visit unless somebody was sick. She's one of them. On our wedding day, she said, I will not be that meddling mother-in-law. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so that's when she came over, when somebody was sick. And so, but what I learned from all of that, the patience, because Tim had the patience of Job too. So the patience that it requires to, be a caregiver and all that. And so, and I'll never forget it, after her diagnosis with dementia, oh Lord, and we were riding home, and before we started the car, I guess, I asked her how she was feeling. And I don't know if you know this part of the story or not, but it was so easy for her to find her words with Lego bricks than with anything else. She was very un-Loretta-like, definitely not an extrovert or anything like that. And so sometimes when she was, in a crisis or, having a crisis or a bad day at work, she had a hard time finding the words she wanted to say to express herself. So when we got the little Lego bricks out, she would just talk and talk, which was really unusual. So when we got in the car, she was like, ooh, after her, diagnosis. And I asked her to build. I had this little lap desk thing on my dashboard with her own little Lego thing that she could put together, and just regular pieces. And I asked her to build how she was feeling, which she could really do.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of doing that, she picked up one of the little Lego minifigures, had gray hair like her, and she took the head off that Lego figure and she held it up and she said, I feel like in a few years, I'm going to lose my head.
Oh my.
I remember putting that on social media and people just lost their minds, how profound it was for her to do that. So I took that she took away from that diagnosis and, just how bad losing your head and all that. And I said, well, before that happens, we're going to have fun every day. And she said, okay. And that was the end of it. That was, we went from that moment on. We laughed when we got out of the car. And then she would say in the beginning, she would say, what's our joy for today? She would actually say that. And then like even into the late, really late stages for her, we would do something fun and we would laugh and laugh. And then she would say, that was our joy.
That is so wonderful.
And I was like, so she really caught on. That was like the coolest thing ever for me. She got it. And so, like she had always taught us to press forward, but I don't think she did that well, especially in her adulthood. I didn't understand it as a teenager, but I think my mom was really depressed. My dad had left when I was born. And so he and I actually never met. So, and I think that really was, a trauma for her. My sister was 9 years older, and my sister's version of what happened is that when I arrived and my dad left, my sister blamed me. Like, okay, not understanding where babies come from. My sister kept telling my mother, send her back. So,
wow. Well,
we had all of that, but you just keep going.
You must have had a time, and maybe I'm wrong.
Huh?
Because I remember when my dad received the diagnosis, I left really afraid.
Yes.
It felt like somebody had just put me in this black hole, and all I could see was darkness. And I did not know what this meant, despite being an Alzheimer's expert. I was like, this is a field I work and I talk about.
Because you don't expect it to happen to you, though. Yes.
Right? And then someone tells me that's what he has.
Yeah.
And first I was like, oh, no, he doesn't. And then I started going through and I was like, okay, what does this look like? I didn't stay there, but it's a hard pill to swallow.
It's
a hard pill to swallow.
It is.
And how do you interact with other people? Because a lot of times they're expecting us to behave a certain way. Like I felt like some of my friends wanted me to crawl under my mattress.
Yes.
And as a person of faith, frankly, I didn't have to do that because I knew I knew what I was going to do. I knew that there was a plan.
Yeah.
Knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I knew that I must be suited to do this, even though I don't know I had the strength. God must know I had the strength to do this.
Right.
What did grief look like for you as you were figuring it out?
Yeah, I think I was more shocked than anything. I mean, she was the first person. I'm thinking, what is this? I didn't even really know a lot about it. I didn't think our family was going to be ever impacted by that. My great grandmother knew everybody's name and spouse's name, where they went to school, all that stuff. till she was, over 101. So like at 77, what do you mean you're going to be, have this dementia? And so I first, when the shock started to wear off, I think I skipped the step of, I can't believe this. I kind of missed that part because in total honesty, my first fear was that because she was so young in our family, that she would outlive my money. Honestly, that was my first thought. So I go there. Like, I know we can do this, but how am I going to do that? And so I had retirement money, but her retirement money was very limited. So thinking, so writing a book was never ever on my list of things to do, but it was the first thing I thought to do, because I didn't want anybody else to feel you were in the field and you were an expert at it. I knew zero. Yeah. So I wanted to learn everything I could and all that. I felt so way behind the 8 ball that, you can't, what is this even going to look like? So I had to just study first and do that. Cause she always taught us, our first field trip was to the library down the street. And so she taught us books with everything, and books had all the answers. Oh, yeah. So I'm like, let me get online and get all the answers, and then the writing, one too. So I think I kind of missed the grief part, because one of the things I did know was whatever the changes were going to be, it wasn't going to be tomorrow. And so when people say that, why are you always talking about joy in your speeches and stuff? Because, there's no joy, in Alzheimer's, because they're dying. Okay, true. But it ain't going to be today. And that's how I did. And some people are like, oh, da-da-da. Yeah. So I went right there. So I'm in my head adding, I'm bad in math, but I understand there was a lot of years between 77 and 100. And because she had no other things, no high cholesterol, no diabetes, no nothing else, she was going to live a long time. Right. So that was my first thought, how I was going to do that. So way before, I was fearful, yes, but I was more fearful of the financial piece. I knew we would survive with the rest of it. We would laugh and do some stuff. I was sure of that. What I was not sure of was how we were going to afford it. I'm just going to.
And that is something we as a nation have not addressed
at all.
So we have got to do some work in that area, like significant work.
Because her little salary as a grade 7 in the federal government was not going to get us there.
Yeah,
so depending on what, and worse than that. We could have done a lot and done, did what you did, bring your mom home and all that. My mother had me sign a document when I was about 14 that said we would not make her live with us when she got and it literally, yes, because she promised, remember, that she was not going to be a meddling mother-in-law. That's because I was born in my grandparents' house and we lived with my grandparents until I went to college. My mother saw that as interfering in their marriage. It most certainly was not that. My grandparents loved having me with them. We had a blast. They roller skated with me. My grandfather did Girl Scouts with me, father, daughter stuff. It was hysterical. And I think I added years to that life. We had a ball. My mother saw it differently. So she was like, I'm never doing that. And don't move me in with you. Y'all have your own life and all. And so when she got to the point where A, she didn't know me, or B, where she was, my friends were saying, you could save all that money by, bringing her home with you, because she would never know. Okay, I would know. And I promised her I wouldn't do that.
Yes. Yeah. That's sometimes friends don't need to say stuff. They don't.
That's right. So we went along with the plan. And so she would always, and it was all about the dignity for her. She was a very proud person. She had all this dignity. And so when she would tell people, I pay my own way. And you want to say, okay, keep thinking that this $1,500 that I've added to her. So we never corrected her. And even on the day that she died, I said this in her eulogy, that even the last day, you go from giving them little sips of water, then you just do the little thing, to wet their lips and stuff, the little sponge. And even then she said, how much does it cost? And we're like, it's free. You paid for it already. She was still asking about the prices. And I had that's
that depression era.
Yes, her caregiver, the primary caregiver, was with us, sat with our family. And I gave her my mom's life insurance and stuff. That girl was on point. And she burst out laughing because we all remember that. How much does it cost? I'm like, I know she did not just say that.
Yes, yeah. That's something that people, either they think about it or they don't think about it at all. They
So
don't.
that's why I wanted to just
Mhm.
do. And so, you were mentioning not having any regrets when your mom died. I was exactly the same. I
Yeah.
took one of those deep breaths. I was there. The hospice nurse was there. This caregiver, Janet, that I mentioned, we were all there. And I just felt this deep sigh, like I did everything I said, as the kids say on TikTok, I understood the assignment and I completed the assignment.
Right.
And we did that joy, most days. And even during COVID, we would sit at the window and laugh and wave and stuff. And so, I felt that I had done every single thing I had promised her I would do. And I did the same thing. She was a great mom, pretty much, raised us by herself and all that. So wanted her to know how great that was. And then you just, like you said, just keep moving forward.
Well, you're a courageous person. It's part of your core.
Mm-hmm.
It takes courage
It
to put
does.
someone's life in your hands like that,
Mm-hmm.
and to be
It
able
does.
to do that. And it's a sacrifice,
Mm-hmm.
even though it might bring us a lot of joy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, like certain cultures, as I've learned, they talk about the burden of caregiving.
Yes.
Black culture, many people, Asian,
Mm-hmm.
certain cultures are brought up to believe it is such an honor
Mm-hmm.
to take care of the ones that took care of us. And that relieves that
It does.
of a burden and the negativity.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get it twisted. It's hard work and
Mm-hmm.
you need to take care of yourself and you need to respite. And you, being the courageous person that you are, driving all around the country by yourself in an
Yeah.
RV. Didn't you know that Black people don't ski and we don't do RVs?
Everybody said there's a whole Black RV group. It's called African Americans Who RV and Camp, NARVA, NARV. It's a thing. But yeah, that was our dream. And Tim and our dream was to, in retirement, after he retired from the police department and I retired, from security stuff I was doing. And our dream was to go around the country and in our RV, but a big RV at the time, is right around the country and take Lego bricks and go to all these campgrounds and play all kinds of Lego games with people who were staying at the campground. They call it work camping, which means you get free camping in exchange for some service. And that was my service. We were going to do and he built these huge containers that took up this whole compartment of our RV where we had all the different, shapes and sizes and colors of Lego bricks. And he worked hard on that thing. And so that was our dream. And so I even left temporarily for 30 days. I was at Homeland Security at the time, immigration, USCIS. And I said, can I go for 30 minutes and we can try out our retirement plan? And they were like, if you're going to come back, you can go. So I left for 30 days. And we went to this place in upstate New York that I had been hired for this work camping gig for 30 days. And it worked perfectly. We wanted to see if we could live in a 38-foot RV without killing each other. And so, the place where you order the food, Home Chef or whatever it's called, Hello Fresh or all of those things, they sent it to our dinners to the upstate New York, post office box or whatever it was. And we would do our little chef thing in the RV like we had done at home. I was like, okay, this is great. This is big enough space for us. It was a huge thing. And so we like, this can really work. So we were happy with our little tryout of our retirement plan. And then during the retirement plan tryout, on day 10, he had a stroke right in front of me and didn't go well. He lived 6 days. Turned out the stroke was caused by a cancer. He actually had stage 4 pancreatic cancer and we didn't have a clue. And so everything, you asked about the grief of my mom and, her diagnosis. Thankfully, we didn't get that diagnosis till after he was gone. They did the autopsy and like, wow, that's what he had and all that. But what flashed before my eyes then was that then my mother and I were going to be alone. Tim, who had done almost everything for us, so everything flashed before my eyes. What's my retirement look like now? What am I going to do with my mom by myself? My sister had also died by then. My sister had MS. Tim and my sister died on the same day, 5 years apart. And so I'm thinking, okay, there's a lesson in this, but I'm not understanding it at the moment. But then my church support, did a support group for me. And, everybody took a thing that Tim used to do for my mom. And that's how I kind of survived it. So the RV thing kind of took a back seat for a minute. I sold the one we had. That was way too big for me. 38 feet is just humongous. But so I ended up getting this little
38 feet when you probably came from at least 1,500 in your house. That 38 feet, like, wow.
It was kind of like, oh, and then we were pulling it with this, huge Ford Expedition and extended cabs. I think was huge too. And so like, wow, we were just going around. So I'm thinking, what am I going to do? And so, yeah, you're right. Because that was our plan, I was determined I was going to do the plan anyway, just in a much different way than I had thought. So I got this little 24-foot thing. Her name is Joy. What else would her name be?
Yes.
And it says it on both sides of her, Joy. There we go. And I, with as small it is, the box that he made, I sold it with the RV, but the old little one. But the new one is really not only reflective of me, it has all kinds of things in it that it means he's still with me. His hat, my granddaughter always says, Grammy, no matter what bunk we go over, Pappy's hat never falls off the counter. It doesn't. It's sitting on his counter.
Nice.
And then he did all the cooking. So there's a big picture of him in front of our old RV in the kitchen because, I still can't cook. I only operate the microwave. And so, yeah, it's that. So he's always there. So I think I'm still doing the plan, obviously, in a much different way. So some of the things one of my goals for 2025 is to convince more people who hire me to speak to get me to let me drive my RV and pick me up at the campground and then take me to the convention center or wherever the thing is, the hotel, whatever it is. And then I do it from there. So I've done some of that. Usually the people who buy into that want an RV and want to see mine. And so,
I might be one of those people. I don't know if I want one. I wouldn't mind being in one with somebody else doing all the work.
I understand.
Yeah. Because I've seen that commercial vacation, whatever it was.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I could do that. So
it is some work, but in the people that I have met, along the way, as you say, people find it so hard to believe I'm doing this by myself. But it was, I think more of it is I'm still carrying my mother with me too, because I wouldn't be doing this whole Lego thing were it not for her. I mean, she introduced me to him, and then it was our sort of lifeline through those crazy teenage years and all that stuff. And then even as an adult, we kept doing it because it was relaxing for us. And so it just fit right into the plan. When she was diagnosed with dementia, we just kept the Lego thing going. So when she got to the point where in Lego Serious Play, you build stuff and tell a story. So I became a facilitator of that method in order to keep that communication going between us when she forgot who I was in 2014. So because she had taught us to share whatever, works, whatever it is you learn, don't keep it to yourself, share it with other people. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm on the road.
I've teaching. It is wonderful. We're going to certainly make sure that people have an opportunity to know where you're going, your website, as well as your book.
Yeah,
I can definitely say this has been just a pleasure. That for Loretta Vini, we know that love is not just a noun, it's a verb.
It is.
Act on it.
That's so cool.
So thank you so much, Loretta, for your time and
You're welcome.
Honesty, and I look forward to seeing you real soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.